Welcome back to another episode. Today, we are going to talk about a part that not a lot of people talk about, but it's really freeing, which is emotional detoxing. Specifically, how to remove the stored emotions from your body. This one is really dear to my heart because it is not the typical way that we are talking about. And we're talking about specifically somatic release. But I feel like somatic release has had a really bad rep over the years. So I want to demystify it and explain it from a proper standpoint. So, a lot of people assume somatic release is like the shaking and screaming and the reality here is, yes, there is a part of it that does include that, but most often than not, it actually is a lot more tame than that. You can do somatic release without screaming out of the top of your lungs, without doing all kinds of things, even though that is one of the highest forms of release. One of those that has showed up on social media is what we call rage rituals. That one is by one of my mentors, Mia Magic, that has come up with this process. And rage rituals are really interesting. Normally, there's someone that guides you through different phases of being able to bring these emotions onto the surface and then releasing them through literally anger. You get angry, you hit stuff, you smash stuff, you do all this until you basically get tired of it. You do it for so long that you just get tired of it. And you're just releasing and you're hitting stuff thinking about that person or that action or that thing that really makes you angry, that really makes you vibrate. And then at some point, you release so much that you don't have anger anymore. You may have sadness, frustration. A lot of people cry. There's people that laugh. There's people that have this peace. And there's this release of this emotion. And you can do this without going to that point. You can do it in a very simpler way. What a lot of people, in my opinion, I've come to find is that they seem to be sad, like they seem to be sad or angry or frustrated, but they don't seem to be able to let it go. What I mean by this is that a lot of people, either through their upbringing or through their lives, have come to a point where they don't have the ability of letting go of their emotions, of letting them go in the proper way. And what I mean by this is that, of course, you're not going to be angry at a colleague and like literally scream in their faces or be angry at them. Of course, you might not be able to do that, but the healthy thing is that once you are able to not explode in that person's face, you deal with it in some sort of way, either through journaling about it, talking about it, crying in the shower, being angry. And what a lot of people don't know is that there's tools for doing this that isn't a rage ritual, even though it's so powerful, but there's ways of doing it that you might not be able to fully understand. So, first, I want to teach you how to identify where you store emotions and how to figure that out. A lot of people store emotions in different ways. There's people that store it in their face, there's people that store it in their heads. A lot of people tend to store it either in their chest or in their stomach. And the way that that comes out is either headaches, constant tension. There's people that literally they say, "Oh my God, I have the most horrible shoulder and back pain. I'm constantly feeling tense like this." And then when you start to talk to them and you get to the root of it, they have been frustrated or they have been angry or they have been sad or something is going on that like they're not releasing that emotion. They tense up their body. Some people do it in their face because they scrunch their forehead right here. Some people do it in their mouth because their mouth is constantly like downturned. Some people store it in their head because they're constantly overthinking. Some people store it in their chest and they feel this heaviness, like they can't breathe. They're constantly saying, "Oh my God, I feel this anxiety. I can't breathe." Or some people feel in their stomach and they're having like digestive issues, or they're bloated, or they're having a hard time pooping. There's people that have it in their back or in their shoulders because you're constantly tensed up like this. And there's ways of releasing that. And there's ways that work better for others. That's normal. Some people, they work by talking to others. Some people work by taking a shower and crying in the shower, talking in the shower. Some people work better by journaling. Some people work better by shaking, by dancing, by moving their body, by going to the gym, by punching a punching bag. Some people have to shake and release, which is called somatic and movement therapy, where like you shake your body. Some people need to do breath work, which is when you breathe in a particular pattern, in a particular way, and that gets you to like do that whole release. And then other people go for journaling, or they talk it out, or they go to a therapist and they like really talk about and they get in the nitty gritty of it and really go in. And sometimes people do a combination of this depending on the depth, depending on the issue, depending on the question. I am someone that I am a mix of all this. Sometimes journaling really helps. Sometimes talking to someone really helps. Sometimes dancing really helps. Movement, somatic shaking, screaming. For me, also, one of them is like taking a shower, taking an extra hot shower, taking a little longer with the water, filling up the tub and getting in the tub. Crying is a perfectly reasonable thing. Crying. Sometimes I force myself to cry by putting like a sad video and forcing it out, because sometimes we almost have this pressure of not releasing emotion. So sometimes if you give yourself a reason because you're watching like a sad video or a happy video and it makes you cry, sometimes that can help you like remove that little edge where it goes from like just watching something sad for the sake of something sad and then getting into your actual emotions. And then the rage rituals, just like Mia Magic has done in the past and has shown online that she does it, it is a whole step up to that. It's a whole somatic, ritualistic situation where it's specific for rage, it's specific for anger, for frustration, where for me, anger, it's one of those things that like it's really hard to let go because it is so difficult to find a safe space to do so. Because the ideal situation of anger is being angry at the thing that you're angry for. But most often than not, you're not angry at the thing, you're angry at the way that you reacted to the thing. And that's when it becomes difficult, because then it's not you're angry at your husband because he doesn't pick up the socks from the floor. You're angry at the fact that you have to even say it, or you're angry at yourself for having to put yourself in that position for some sort of reason. And I'm exaggerating the point. Of course, not everyone is going to be mad at their husband for not picking up the socks from the floor. I'm giving a broad example of something that I've heard about. But for example, you could be angry at yourself for staying in a job that treated you like crap for so long. You could be angry at yourself because you put yourself down for multiple years and thought you weren't good enough. You might be frustrated at yourself because you may see whatever you do as something that is limiting, and you don't allow yourself, or you have limiting beliefs and you're frustrated at your limited beliefs, and that becomes anger because you're angry at your own limiting beliefs. And those moments, normally you either have to have support doing it, or you need to be in a safe space to do so. And a lot of people aren't safe to do so. A lot of people live with families. A lot of people live alone. A lot of people don't feel safe doing it, and that's fine. Therapy really works. Journaling really works. A diary really works. If you have a friend that you can talk to, really works. And breath work also really works. Breath work is really easy to get into. You can find a video online where you see the person doing it with you, so it's not as crazy as people think. And shaking, dancing, sometimes putting on a song and dancing while you're cooking. Sometimes that can release some stuck up emotions that you may have. Sometimes just a really good song can lift up your mood or sadden your mood. How many people have been like in a bout where like their playlist is really sad, they're like about to cry and everything, and then all of a sudden a happy song goes up and like, what the fuck? You're just like, I was about to get into a depressed mode, and then all of a sudden happy from Pharrell just popped up, you know? It just happens because we're human and we go through that. So the idea of the somatic release, of releasing those stored emotions, is one, giving the opportunity of letting them go, and two, to allow you to name them, to locate them, to understand where they are, because it also helps prevent them from happening in the first place. Because by understanding how they're stored in your body and then understanding how to release them, then it's easier to understand when they start to get stored to be able to release them without them being stored for too long, allowing you to have a more aligned, more calm, more collected life, because you're not just like stuck up with your shoulders up here because you're all tensed up because you're anxious because you don't like to do X, Y, or Z. And instead you're like, okay, so I don't like doing this, but I can breathe a little more and I can relax a little more and I can feel a little better, and your shoulders start to drop and you start to feel relaxed. And then by the time that you notice your shoulders are all the way down, you're fully relaxed, you're fully loose, and you're like, oh, wait a minute, this wasn't this bad. I can deal with this. I can figure this out. I can turn this around. And that will really help to change your life from constantly storing emotions and constantly trying to fix them into understanding the emotions before they get stored and being able to release them before they get stored. And that is the beauty once you start doing this type of work, is that you get to a point where you see it, you feel it, you understand it, and then you go from storing it and trying to fix it to seeing it before it gets stored and fixing it before it gets stored. And that will allow you to have a more freed, more softer, more type of life. You can breathe a little deeper. You don't feel as bloated. Your stomach doesn't feel as tight. Your shoulders and your back don't feel as tight. You don't have a feeling like you want to cry all the time. You don't feel like you have a headache all the time. And that really, really helps in the long term. So now that you have gotten all these, I hope that this helps you. And if you have any questions or you need any advice, you can go ahead and leave it in the comment section below. And if you find that your issues cannot be solved or taken care of this way, or you find that this does not work for you, you could also seek medical help and get a therapist, a psychiatrist, or a psychologist, depending on your issue, to help you out with your emotions. If you need anything else from me, you can go ahead and comment. If you like this video, go ahead and like. And if you want to see more from me, go ahead and subscribe and hit the bell so that you're able to get notifications of every single time that I post. I will see you next week. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.